wind howled across the empty plains like a restless spirit searching for something it had lost long ago. Dust curled through the narrow streets of the quiet frontier town, settling over wooden porches and weary faces. The setting sun burned low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and sorrow. Ezekiel Carter, a lone cowboy known across the territory for his silence more than his strength, guided his horse slowly through the fading light. He had seen hardship in many forms: betrayal, hunger, war, and loneliness, yet nothing could prepare him for the trembling voice that would soon stop him in his tracks. "Please, follow me home." The words were barely more than a whisper, fragile as a dying flame. Ezekiel turned, his sharp eyes narrowing beneath the shadow of his weathered hat. Standing near the edge of the street was a young girl, no more than 8 years old. Her dress hung in torn layers from her small frame, her bare feet covered in dust and bruises. Strands of tangled hair clung to her tear-streaked face, and her wide eyes shimmered with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Ezekiel was not a man easily moved by emotion. Life had hardened him, teaching him that survival often demanded distance from the suffering of others. Yet something in the girl's trembling hands and fragile voice stirred a feeling he had buried years ago, a memory of a promise he once failed to keep. He dismounted slowly, his boots striking the earth with deliberate caution. Kneeling before her, he softened his voice. "Where's your family, child?" The girl hesitated, her lips quivering. She looked behind her as if afraid someone might be watching. "Please, just come. I'm scared to go back alone." Something in her plea carried a weight beyond simple fear. It was the kind of terror that grows in silence, the kind that lives in shadows. Ezekiel studied her for a long moment, then gave a small nod. Without another question, he took the reins of his horse and followed her. She led him beyond the town's fading lights, down a narrow trail swallowed by tall grass and whispering winds. The journey was quiet except for the crunch of dirt beneath their steps and the distant cry of night birds. As they walked, Ezekiel noticed the girl limping slightly, wincing with each step. He offered to carry her, but she shook her head stubbornly, her eyes fixed forward. After nearly an hour, a small cabin emerged from the darkness. It stood alone against the vast emptiness of the plains, its wooden walls battered by years of storms, its windows dark and lifeless. The air around it felt heavy, unnaturally still, as though even the wind refused to linger. The girl stopped at the door but did not enter. Her hands trembled violently. "He's inside," she whispered. Ezekiel's instincts sharpened. He moved ahead, pushing the creaking door open with slow caution. The smell hit him first, a mixture of decay, sickness, and neglect. The cabin was dim, lit only by a flickering oil lamp struggling to stay alive. Inside, a man lay motionless on a narrow bed. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, his body weakened by what appeared to be severe illness. The room showed clear signs of desperation: empty water buckets, scattered medicine bottles, and days' worth of untouched food. The girl rushed to the man's side, clutching his frail hand. "My papa," she cried softly. "He won't wake up." Ezekiel approached carefully, checking the man's pulse. It was faint but present. The illness was severe, yet not beyond saving, if treated quickly. What shook Ezekiel was not the sickness itself, but the realization that this child had been caring for her dying father alone, hidden from the world, carrying a burden no child should ever bear. "How long has he been like this?" Ezekiel asked gently. 4 days, she answered, her voice breaking. "I tried to get help, but people in town said he was trouble. They told me not to come back." A shadow passed through Ezekiel's eyes. He had seen cruelty before, but the abandonment of a helpless child stirred a quiet fury within him. Without hesitation, he sprang into action. He fetched fresh water from the well, cleaned the man's wounds, and used the limited medicine he carried from his saddlebag. Through the long night, he worked tirelessly while the girl watched with silent hope. As dawn finally broke, the man's breathing steadied. His eyelids fluttered weakly before opening. Confusion filled his tired gaze until he saw the girl beside him. "Anna," he whispered. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced him. Ezekiel stepped back, intending to leave quietly. But as he turned, the man's weak voice stopped him. "Why? Help us." Ezekiel paused. For a moment, the weight of his own past surfaced, memories of loss, of a family he once failed to protect. He answered simply, because someone should have. Days passed, and Ezekiel remained at the cabin, helping nurse the man back to health. The girl, Anna, followed him everywhere, her fragile fear slowly replaced by bright laughter. The once silent cabin filled with warmth and life. Yet one evening, as the sun dipped low once more, the man revealed a truth that would shake Ezekiel to his core. Years earlier, he had been falsely accused of a crime, a theft committed by powerful men who needed a scapegoat. Branded an outlaw, he had been cast out, forced to live in isolation to protect his daughter from those who still hunted him. The town's rejection, the illness, the desperation, it had all been born from injustice. Ezekiel listened in silence, his jaw tightening. He recognized the names mentioned, influential figures who controlled the region through fear and lies. The same men who had once destroyed Ezekiel's own life. Fate had not brought him to this cabin by accident. That night, beneath a sky filled with cold stars, Ezekiel made a decision. He would not walk away again. He would fight. Not for revenge, but for truth, for justice, and for the small girl who had trusted a stranger enough to whisper, "Please follow me home." The battle that followed would change the town forever. Ezekiel exposed the corruption that had poisoned the community for years. The powerful men who once ruled through fear were stripped of their authority, and the innocent man was finally freed from his false past. But the greatest change occurred within Ezekiel himself. The lonely cowboy who had wandered the plains without purpose found something he thought he had lost forever, a family. He rebuilt the cabin, not as a place of hiding, but as a home filled with hope. Laughter replaced silence, and healing replaced sorrow. And as years passed, the story of the little girl who begged a stranger for help became a legend across the frontier, a reminder that even the smallest voice can awaken courage in the hardest heart. Before the tale ends, let this story remind you, sometimes a single act of kindness can rewrite destiny. If this journey moved your heart, support stories that inspire hope and courage. Subscribe to the channel, join this growing family, and continue walking these powerful journeys together, because every story you watch keeps these messages alive. The wind still moves across the plains, carrying whispers of courage, compassion, and redemption. And somewhere beneath an endless sky, a cowboy once lost to the world rides forward, no longer alone.